happy that I'm being able to have this conversation with you on a formal level, to be able to, I guess, share. We're all interested in one another in different ways, even though we don't ask a lot of questions sometimes and intrude in others' life experiences. But it has been a very comfortable experience for me to be able to, in some way, allow others to know a little more about my life. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the other tapes.
I'm delighted to share my story with you. It's a story of joy, peace, happiness, and many, many blessings. My father was John McGrath. He was named after his father, John McGrath. But he was called throughout his life Mac. About 1930, he came to the United States through Canada. My mother, from a different part of Ireland, was sent by her parents to live with her Aunt Molly in Emeryville, California. My mother celebrated her 16th birthday on the boat. She came with 1 suitcase and 5 pounds, and that was it. She came through Ellis Island.
We moved from being Depression era people into being World War II people. And so my 4 first cousins were suddenly gone and in the armed forces. We had our weekly ration book. This was all a big experience. We had a wonderful uncle who would slip us cubes of butter from the black market. And we had blackouts, practice air raid drills. We had buckets of sand in our hallway in case of an incendiary bomb, and all this was growing up. So my childhood was very, very exciting.
An Italian-American family, although my mother always emphasized the American. Don't tell people you're Italian. But I had 2 grandparents, 2 sets of grandparents and 2 great-grandmothers that spoke Italian, so I knew.
You knew you were Italian.
I knew I was Italian, even though I wasn't supposed to be saying that around the neighborhood.
With permission of the San Francisco Police Department, they roped off from 24th to 25th Street. They roped off the street there, and we could play in the street. And I remember my friend, Sister Noreen, was very tall, and so she could be the basket and hold her arms out like this and then catch the ball. And that counted as making a basket.
Well, I was born Maria Guadalupe Ibarra into a Mexican immigrant family, strong Catholic, although they located in Texarkana, right on the Texas-Arkansas border. I was born at home on State Line Street, and my home just happened to be on the Arkansas side. I inherited my Catholic faith, and it seems like most of the activities were involved with the church when I was young. Life was very simple. And so we grew very close to our formal educators, the Ursuline nuns.
Both my parents came from Brooklyn, and I have an older sister, 2 brothers, and then me. And my father was asked to come to the West Coast. He worked for 20th Century Fox, and the company wanted to move to the West Coast. So he and 6 other families came to Los Angeles and started Fox West Coast. He was the finance person. One of the stories I love the best about my mother is one of her claims to fame, where she said she could jump over the fire hydrants in New York, and other girls her age wouldn't do that because it was unladylike. And my mother was unladylike, and she thrived on that kind of difference.
We moved to San Gabriel, and I did not want to come to California. I did not want to come to California. I was a city girl. And in my mind, California was a place of cactus and desert and, well, the Wild West. It did have one advantage, however, and that was that I could have a horse. So that was my baby. I remember even on the airplane telling the pilot that we were going to California and I was going to get a horse. And for a while my hopes were very high, and I prayed so hard that what we were going to do with it in the apartment, I'm not exactly sure. But anyway.
What was your experience in the South of the tensions around race and culture and the civil rights movement?
Well, for me as a child, there was a great deal of tension because in my family, my mother embraced everyone as a beautiful human being. And the practice at the time was discrimination against, well, actually, black people and Hispanics. And so as a Mexican, members of my family also suffered from the racial discrimination. And I worked at St. Michael's, which was predominantly black and Hispanic. And when I was teaching senior religion, any of the girls, all of the girls, could tell you to the moment, the day, and the year when they first were exposed to some form of discrimination. And it was very, very hurtful to hear their stories and then relate them to the time when I was a child too. And so I have a special empathy for anyone who's discriminated against.
My religious vocation was born, I would say, when I was maybe the second grade, when we moved into the St. Luke's in Temple City, and that was always my secret desire. And when I say secret, I think it was secret because I didn't want to get that to mess up the rest of my social life. So I had a close friend, and we two shared the same desire. And so through elementary school and high school, that was always there. But I was never going to be a Dominican. But in 1958, I found myself at the ripe old age of 18 coming to Mission San Jose. And honestly, that's when the journey of my heart began, and began in earnest, so I didn't have to live in two different worlds, or sometimes more than that.
And where did you first meet Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose?
I met them at Flintry Sacred Heart, where my mother had determined that I would go to school, even though my friends were going to Holy Family Glendale, where I really wanted to go, because, well, you go with your friends, right? However, that was not to be, and by the end of my first year, she would have been very happy to let me make my own choice, and by then I was in love with Flintry Sacred Heart and have spent over half my life there.
Tell us a little bit about your time with the Franciscans.
Well, that is the time, I guess, that I was discerning whether to remain with the Franciscans, because when I made my 33-day retreat, it was with the idea of celebrating my Silver Jubilee. And how that came about, I think it was in June or July that I had my retreat, and I had time to discern and think of what's next for me. In 1981, Sister Mary Thomas called me sometime in June or July and inquired, "Are you still thinking of coming to be a Dominican?" And I said, "Yes, sister." And then she said, "Well, can you teach?" And I said, "Yes." So then the position to go to St. Francis Cabrini in San Jose, fourth grade teacher, was open, and I came, and I lived with our sisters, Dominican sisters, in San Jose. It was a very beautiful experience. They even welcomed my Aunt Carmen, and my Aunt Carmen always tried to be with me or visit me at one of the convents.
After high school, I started college in the evenings, but I stopped because it was getting too dangerous to go on the campus at night, and I had to work to support myself during the day. So I took a job with the Veterans Administration. And for the rest of my career, until I entered the convent, I worked with the Veterans Administration.
Entering here in 1955, September the 8th, there were, I believe, 15 of us. Currently, there are 3 of us, but there's been 60 years, so coming and going one way or another. Those were good years. They were hard years for me in particular, missing the family for one thing. Trying to balance the studying and doing some of the work around here that needed help, cleaning the red tile. I remember in postulancy sitting out on the window ledge. We were taught how to do it and not fall, but you can still clean the windows, you know. So that it was instructional. It was good. There was camaraderie. It was different. It was different from what I was used to. It's different from what it is now.
My father was, it was the first time I ever saw my father cry, actually. And my mother was furious. And I dreaded visiting days. My parents would live in Los Angeles. Of course, they didn't come up every Sunday for visiting. They came around the holidays, you know. And it always, my mother would never come into the house. We always had to visit in the car out in the parking lot. You know, little by little, my picture started appearing in the house, you know, in the habit. And one time, one of the priests came to give communion to my grandmother, and he saw the picture, and he said, "Well, who's that?" She said, "It's my daughter." And he says, "Oh, she's a Dominican Mission San Jose, isn't she?" And my mother was very impressed with that people would, you know, notice and know the Dominican Sisters of Mission San Jose, you know. So in the end, they were fine with it, you know. But in the beginning, the first 6 years was not real pleasant.
When I entered the convent, I was blessed to enter with 10 other young women from the United States and one from Guam, who became Sister Juanita Marie. Over the years, our numbers have changed. All of them have predeceased me. I'm the only one left living. But it was a blessing being with them, going through formation. Those who have moved on to other vocations in life or to the religious vocation with Holy Spirit sisters, we've stayed connected through correspondence or phone call, etc. So that was a blessing there. Having people move on that you're connected with is hard. There are losses.
But you're one of the sets that a lot of us look to and say, wow, they get together every year. Those bonds of friendship too, and shared experience. It's wonderful.
We do. We are going on February 15th, so 2 weeks. And this will be our 42nd set reunion.
Oh my gosh.
So, we just value it. None of us have ever missed, and we always go on President's Weekend, and I think one of the times somebody had something and we changed the weekend, but we all went. And we just love the time together.
After you made first profession, did you go to school, or were you sent out teaching right away?
Well, we had gone to school at the Mother House. There was still a college here, and then we came back for summer sessions also.
So your first teaching assignments were, did you go to Los Angeles first?
Yes, I went to Los Angeles, and I taught at Santa Teresita, and I taught at St. Michael's. This is in elementary school.
Yes.
St. Michael's, and I went to San Gabriel, and a few other schools in the
And then you
LA.
returned to St. James, where you went to school.
Oh, not St. James Girls' School, but St. James Boys' School. I taught at.
Oh, what was that like?
Well, that was difficult for me at the time, because up until that time, I guess I had either taught all girls or I had taught classes mixed of boys and girls. So this was my first experience with all boys in elementary school. And sixth grade boys are a little rambunctious.
A little rambunctious, yes.
I had this wonderful music background, and when I got into the community, they said, well, what do you want to study? Because, of course, I hadn't started college yet. And I said, well, I don't know, I just wanted to be a sister. I didn't think about that. And I said, but I like music. So then I began to pursue that dream. And I did major in piano and then did my master's in music ed. And although I really love the piano, my best instrument has always been my voice and choral directing. And so that has been an expression and a creative outlet, and where I find some of the deepest relationships, because you can't be in that kind of a relationship without growing some deep connections.
School of the Madeleine.
Oh my.
That was my first assignment. It was delightful. Young sisters, we would come back here for holidays, and during the summer, more classes, more studying to better prepare us to teach. I taught second grade at the School of the Madeleine.
I started out as a second grade teacher. And although they told me those were probably the easiest children in all of the schools that we had, they walked all over me. And I can remember more than once talking to Sister Mary Peter on the phone and saying, crying, I want to come home, I don't want to do this anymore, this is not working, I am not a teacher. And she kept telling me how wonderful I was in the classroom, and I could say, yeah, right, it's easy for you to say.
I guess the most fulfilling part of my ministry was at Immaculate Conception Academy, where from 1996 through 2011, all of my students entered the Respect for Life essay contest. Well, they all had to write the essay, and then I sent in certain ones.
And I think you won that regularly.
Every year. I didn't win it. It was the students who did the hard work. And I was so proud of them because they really entered into the study, and I required the essay to be written by every student. I felt like it was worth it to include that in my lesson plans.
I look back to comments that have been made after the fact, that they had really retained a whole lot that I wouldn't have expected of at the time. Kept at it, but I think the appreciation and afterthought was very heartwarming. It really was.
Well, really, the drawing card was that I went to Sister Renilde and asked her if I could study clinical pastoral education and pastoral care and get a start in it. And she said, I'll grant you a year off in a year after we talk to your high school principal and put in a notice, but you have to get a salary job when you finish. You just can't do this on your own. And the county hospital is a wonderful place to train because you have prisoners from the local jails, you have people with Hansen's disease still, you have people that are desperate, and the resident doctors vie to get a calling to do their internship at a county hospital because the experience is so broad. So Father Marshall said, I need help. And I said, oh, Father, I'd love to work with you. He said, well, I'll hire you. I'm going to phone Sister Renilde right now. And he picked up the phone and phoned Sister Renilde, and the deed was done.
And you had a job.
And Sister Renilde was very pleased that I had a salaried job.
So we switched our housing from dealing with persons in recovery to dealing with the lifers who were getting out. And it was at the same time that I realized that when they were in the sober living houses, if you weren't in there for the right reason, then it wasn't going to work. And I wanted to do faith-based housing. So we did switch our housing into working with lifers. We got involved with the parole board in Sacramento, and when a lifer was going to the parole board, they had to show the parole board that they were ready to release. And we began writing letters saying what the lifer had done in order to be prepared to get out of prison. And at the time, again, and Governor Brown had switched into office in 2008, and he was letting lifers out. I think it was 2010. Schwarzenegger was in there till 2010, and then Brown went in 10, and he was letting out more lifers. And mostly I do that now. I go around to the prisons very often, and I teach the insight class so that they understand, why did I get into what I got into, crime, and what am I doing now to change my life so that I'm ready to get out. And that's been very rewarding. So
It's not enough just to say hello and talk to them. I need to leave something with them. So he asked me, well, what do you need? I said, I need Snickers, small candy Snickers. So he provided bags and bags of Snickers for years. And even after he passed away, the one that followed him in his position also gave me candy. So as I would go to Barnes and Barnes and meet people, I met one of the men that I met had his children who attended San Gabriel, and I would meet women who were taking care of the horses. I would meet children in the clinic who I would take care of during the time that they were with their doctor. I kept on finding ways in which I could relate to the people and encourage them to go to the clinic. That was my main thing, to be present to them, listen to them, and then encourage them, take care of your health, go to the clinic, either the flu shot or whatever it might have been that they were sponsoring, a mammogram whatever it was, I would have to encourage the people to go.
And I've always enjoyed writing. I have never had any sense that I would write the great American novel. My desire and probably my competence is really toward the shorter piece, whether that would be prose or poetry. And I have just discovered, I think, how to write free verse, and so I am more than pleased with that. The other was fine. I knew what free verse was, but I had not a clue how to do it. And this past summer, I went online and found I thought, oh, well, I could do that. So, anyway, that part's an adventure.
Well, I know you have delighted many of us for a very long time with this gift.
Then I was asked to go to Tucson, out of the state. And that was a different experience. There I did some work in the library. This is not I can't say it was a college library. It was a library with religious textbooks and other types of reading, religious books. In addition to that, I taught on Sunday mornings, religious ed. And we formed a community of, for the most part, 2 of us. But we were also community with the friars. Mm-hmm. So the sisters and the friars prayed together, morning prayer, evening prayer. We cooked together in the sense we all took our days for cooking, ate together, recreated together. It was a beautiful family experience among us. The friars and the sisters and lovely people at the Newman Center from local parishes. They came and supported the Newman Center. And then, of course, the interaction with the college students. Mm-hmm. And went on a couple of retreats with them. So that was all very good. Yeah, different.
Well, during those years, Sister Mary Thomas, our leader, really encouraged us to try and get into social justice. So Sister Veronica Lonergan, Sister Mary Lewis Seal, Sister Julie Zobeline, and myself and several others, we formed together and started a justice ministry. Michael Marie, as Julie was then called in those days, called us JAG, Justice Action Group. And we were in Bay Area here, and we try to meet every month, have soup and a meeting on after school work. And we really tried to get into the social justice. It was a good start.
Counsel, I remember being scared to death when I was a counselor in the 80s. How could I ever do this? And in fact, my community in Pasadena asked if I could commute for 2 years, and that was, of course, unheard of. But we did it, and it worked out well. Now, I am so relaxed in the role that I hope I'm still helpful, but I realize that it's just what we do together. And so I feel like I'm a companion, and I feel like our sisters are we're all growing companions together. So it's a great gift. And being on the council this second term of this leadership lets me know that I have so much to learn. And I'm just grateful that I recognize it and that I continue to become. And that is a gift of this new council to me, who got quite comfortable on the first term around, and am learning a lot of new things that I need to learn in order to continue to grow.
I've had the privilege to work with our sisters in healthcare in St. Martin's. I've witnessed these elder sisters in their last days. The gift is humbling, and it's a privilege to be with them. it's also overwhelming. I have witnessed healing, suffering, and pain. And I've often heard our sisters say, I'm offering up this for the church, for the world, for our lay staff, for the poor, for the oppressed, for the congregation, for peace throughout the world. They continue in their whole life to live a life of faith and offer their sufferings for others, the Christian life.
The day before I left the Franciscans, and I told two of my friends, tomorrow I'm going to be leaving the Franciscans. And they said, why? I said, because I'm going to transfer to the Dominicans. So I told them a little bit, and one of them said, but what if they don't want you? And I said, well, if they don't want me, that means my religious life has been completed, and I'll see what God directs me thereon. So here I am. I'm a Dominican.
The Dominican sisters wanted you, yes.
And I've been a Dominican for more than 30 years. I celebrated my Golden Jubilee. In religious life, in my religious life, there have been moments of tears, but more moments of joy. And I give a lot of credit, first to God, and then to family and sisters.
What values would you want to hand on to share to our future?
Integrity has been important for me. Am I living who I say I am? That's important. Am I preaching? Am I living what I'm preaching? Am I living what I'm saying? Am I doing it to become better? And I think one of the believables as we go around to the prisons is, it doesn't apply to you, the inmate, it applies to me as much as it applies to you, that I myself must learn by everything I do to do it to become a better person. So, am I visiting you in this prison today because I can give to you? And no, I'm not. I'm doing this today because I am gaining so much from it of what I am learning because of us working it together. So, integrity is a strong value for me.
And as a teacher of English, the importance and the power of word that I think is so crucial, and all of the texting that is going on makes me nervous in terms of how the language is going to hold together. I think our literary heritage is so important.
We don't always see what God sees as the best for us. And it's only in the aftermath that, looking back over a long span of years, that you can see that God indeed does right straight with crooked lines.
I just feel that here at Mission San Jose, we have a very strong faith-based group. We ourselves open our chapel to many people who come for prayer in the evening. I feel that we have a big opportunity to practice mindfulness, to practice a quietness of manner that we can work for other people and be relational, as our direction statement encourages us. Try for relational living. And to do that, you have to really be based on solidly on our Christian life and our contemplative stance that we take, and all that we're doing to try and work for social justice, I think that our charism is really calling us to that.
From Isaiah 49. Yahweh called me before I was born. From my mother's womb, he pronounced my name. This quotation was written in the back of a memorial card of my 25th anniversary. I think it is true to my life.
We need to look for the common ground for all of us. Common ground where we can seek and work for peace and bring it about. And lastly, I think we need to create an attitude of gratitude. Grateful for all the gifts and the blessings we receive each day.
And as a religious, in some ways, I think it's, I think the tradition plus the new, I think there needs to be a balance. I think there is so much that is rich in the tradition we have as Dominicans, I think in the office. It gives us a spirituality that's bigger than ourselves.
I guess if I would say anything to anybody, it's trust yourself, listen to yourself, and listen and listen and listen to others, and to take myself seriously and to take other people seriously, but always to do it with a sense of humor. My sense of humor is allowed me to be in the most serious and sometimes sad situations, and to be able to look seriously but sideways. And sideways looking for me always lets me have hope and trust, and not to let that seriousness be like I'm the center of the universe. It's just, I need to keep perspective, and that's what humor does.
Call to ministry at this time is a call to a ministry of prayer, to pray for the sisters who are in the schools, and to pray for the situations that arise in the world that are sometimes very frightening. I've never read of so many mass killings as I have recently, and so I think my call by God to ministry right now is a call to a ministry of prayer.
He says that what they modeled in prayer carried me through the Second World War in the battle lines. And he said, I know other men will tell you the same thing. The lives that our sisters modeled for them, the life of prayer, carried them through in the war and their lives after that. That was a blessing to hear that. Those aren't things that I've heard really over the years until these older gentlemen. And actually, Stan was last of the group that I knew that passed away not long ago. But he said, we know that they prayed for us. And that, because they did that, that led us to pray, even now in our adult lives. And I thought, what a beautiful witness our sisters have given over the years. And many of them probably don't even know that, which is a suffering in ministry when you don't know the results of your good works.
Hope that our America, our country, will be less divided than it is now. And I don't think it's just going to happen. I think we need to pray about that. I think we need to be active, proactive, sign those petitions, those letters, whatever is going to make a difference, be it big or little. I think that's very important. And we're in this together. strength and unity.
And we can make a
And we
difference.
can make a difference.